All right, we are live now. So it'll be a second before YouTube catches up. There's a little bit of a delay in between the two. Matter of fact, let me check a couple things real quick while we're waiting on YouTube to catch up. There it is. Now I can. All right, then I could hear it. Let me see. All right, I'm just checking other parts of the feed. Rumble's going up live. X should be up. X is live. So we're actually broadcasting on YouTube, Rumble, and X. So let's see what we got. What is up, perps? We got Run Guns checking in. We got G23 checking in. What's up, my brother? So hell, let's hit the intro.
This is Sparta!
Hey, boys! Look what I got here! Hey, where are the white women at?
It should be running smooth on YouTube. All right, what's up, guys? So anyway, me and Warsaw wanted to get together. Warsaw, introduce yourself to the fans. You know who everybody is, but just say what up.
What up, everybody? Yeah, you can find me here with my brother Coop. Yeah, YouTubers, go figure. But yeah, tonight we're going to be covering a certain case I had no idea actually happened in the state of Illinois, believe it or not, out of all places. Apparently, they had a state handgun ban.
Yeah, we were, Warsaw wasn't aware of it. And there was a case, matter of fact, we were just talking about it in the back. I think the case that actually kind of smashed their handgun ban was Izell v. City of Chicago. And that was went through the 7th Circuit in 2017, from what I'm seeing over here. So anyway, yeah, they and we're gonna watch a video. You guys have heard us talk about Todd Vandermeide before. Todd Vandermeide, he's got some stuff running through the Illinois courts right now over what was the ammunition tax. I think that's his present one. He's been involved in a lot of cases challenging gun laws for a long time. So let me see. And his channel is actually, I got that all linked in the chat. But we're going to watch. This is an old interview with him. And this guy from, what's he from? Chicago and against handgun violence or something like that. They're another group that was kind of like Brady. We're going to watch this because this was before the Heller decision. Yeah, McDonald. This was before the first Heller decision, I believe. So, and they were trying to push some of the same BS in Chicago with some of the laws and regulations they wanted to put through. But one of the reasons to watch this is because we're going to talk about some other things in a little bit. Where Todd has some pretty good ideas on how we can actually get in and start fighting against this stuff if we can get basically the House Judiciary to get off their ass. And that's kind of what we're going to push for. So let's roll this. This is older. This was before the first Heller decision. This is 10 years ago, over 10 years.
Hello and welcome to At Issue. I'm H. Wayne Wilson. We're pleased to have you with us. There are a couple of two-word phrases that will raise the hackles on the back of most people's heads. One is the Second Amendment, or we could say gun control. And by witnessing the rifle that is sitting on the table here at the At Issue set, you probably know what the topic of this program is going to be. We're going to talk about that with Todd Vandermeide. Todd, thank you for being with us.
Nice to be here, Wayne.
Todd is the legislative liaison for the National Rifle Association. And
don't hold that against Todd. He was actually pretty good.
across the table and across the aisle and is Chris Boyster. Chris is the Downstate Director of Programs and Services for the Illinois Council Against Handgun Violence.
Thank you for having me.
Let's
like a
talk
straight-
in general about why, with both of you, just why is this such a divisive issue? I mean, we've had weapons in America since before its creation. So why do we get so bent out of shape over guns?
I think on our perspective, it's, people have their rights, and our membership and the people who hunt and own firearms for self-defense are very interested in protecting their individual
they're doing
rights.
good, Sam.
Their right to self-defense,
Just living
their
that
right to
dream,
defend
brother.
their families from intruders, their right to hunt and provide for their families, as well as a right that's been enumerated in the Constitution since its inception, that they have a right to own a firearm. And when you start talking about removing individual rights and personal liberties, our people, our members, and a lot of Americans, the Gallup poll says 73% of the people say it's an individual right and support that. That I think, we were a country founded in liberty, founded in individual rights that were granted to us and preserved in the Constitution. When you start talking about monkeying around with that basic premise that's been ingrained in our country for 225 years, I think it raises a lot of people's hackles.
And Chris?
And from the premise of your original question, I think the problem is this issue has become an issue of perception of this side has this stance and this side has this stance. I represent an organization, the Illinois Council Against Handgun Violence, and our mission is to reduce death and injury associated with firearm violence. We have probably of any other industrialized nation on the face of the earth, the highest homicide rate and murder rate. And unlike those other countries, the common denominator is that a firearm is involved. We have, because this issue has been perceived in the light of right versus not right, it's become an issue of don't trample on my rights versus the good of public safety.
In fact, Todd mentioned the Constitution. Let's look at the Second Amendment so that everybody is familiar with it. It's very short. And Todd, do you want to, you know it by heart,
It's
I think.
27 words. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
And in fact, the state constitution in Article number 1, Section number 22 also has something. And Chris, are you familiar with that?
Yes, I am. And as you look at the Second Amendment and the state's constitution, and we have the Supreme Court case that is currently in front of us today, I was having a conversation with someone earlier on the way up here, and they said, well, in the realm of where we are today, in the time that the Second Amendment was written, it's as irrelevant as the Third Amendment is today. Look, this is an argument and an issue in today's society because
He's running his
we're talking about public safety. We're talking about common sense gun regulation, which the Supreme Court has, in its history, has said that states have the right to enact common sense, sensible gun regulation. We're not talking about whether or not someone has the right to keep or bear arms. We're talking about regulating firearms with common sense gun legislation. And that's our perspective of it.
Yeah, but I think you have a very warped perspective of what common sense is when you want to
See,
throw
Todd
those
breaks
words
it
around.
off on him
I mean,
right
the
there.
DC case is absolutely about whether or not you have a right to own a firearm.
And remember, the DC case they're talking about here is, I believe, the first Heller case. McDonald had already been decided. This was about the first Heller case.
You have an individual who was a security guard who's charged with carrying a firearm to protect public property, but he can't have a firearm in his own home for self-defense. He's barred from having a handgun in his own home. He's barred from having an
100%
operable rifle or shotgun so he can take care of his family in case he has a burglar. When we had a case of a man in Wilmette, Illinois, Hale DeMar, who defended his family. He just put his 2 young children to bed, heard a burglar breaking into his house. Now, this was the second time in 2 nights that this burglar had been in his home. He came downstairs with a handgun, shot at the intruder, wounded the intruder fled. And for that, Wilmette wanted to charge him and did charge him with a violation of their handgun ban. And your organization opposed a bill that said it was wrong and illegal to charge a man who defends his family in his own home. This is absolutely about defending your right to own a firearm and being able to have a firearm in your own home.
And you get the insanity of that cannot be understated. You got a guy in his home, supposed to be secure in his possessions and all that. Get someone to break in, possible threat. He shoots a dude, wounds him, and the state wants to put him in prison. But then when a bill comes up that says, hey, you can't throw someone in jail for defending themselves in their own home, this gun control dude is so hard gun control, they were against it.
And our organization opposed that legislation because we also believe that municipalities, and that goes, we'll go this into a little further when we look at the Supreme Court case. Let me back up and say the Supreme Court case really only deals with D.C. It deals with D.C.'s
and
ban,
we'll
and we'll
mention
get
that in a
into
moment.
that. But my organization opposed that bill because we believe that municipalities have the right to set forth their own health and safety standards in regards to firearm regulation. Different municipalities and different places in the state have different problems and different issues, and it's the municipality's right to deal with those health and safety standards.
But a man who defends his own family in his own home with a firearm should not be arrested, charged, and tried because he chose to use a firearm to defend his family. I don't think the last refuge that the people think should be in a bedroom with a locked door with 911 praying the cops are going to get there in time.
But I think you need to go back and you look at that goes back to your original question. When you look at this issue, it's of, well, it's my inherent right. It's my inherent right to have the firearm to protect and to protect my family,
Yes.
and to save my family and use it for
Chamber, what's
self-protection.
up, brother?
You also have to look at a firearm in the home. We're talking about accessibility. No one has ever come out and said that individual, there is no ban that says he cannot have that gun in his home. But
Wilmette
we're
clearly
also
said he couldn't have that handgun in his home. Wilmette has a ban on handguns across the board, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And that's what he was charged under. That's where you're wrong.
But then he's not a law-abiding citizen. If he is in a municipal...
Pause.
I was already hitting it.
All right. Do you care about the individual's life when he's under attack? That's the question you should be asking yourself that.
No, well, this dude doesn't.
Oh, no, that's the point. If I was in the argument there, I would ask him that question. Because the law is prohibiting him from actually defending his one's life and the others around him.
This guy's organization, from what I listened to, because I listened to a little bit of this earlier, is very close to the way Brady started out. Brady started out to ban all handguns, period. It wasn't just the background check stuff. It was to ban all handguns.
And what was it? The national, was it the NFA? Was it the NFA also affecting that too with the handguns?
No, that came into more the GCA, I think. The NFA wanted to tax all handguns and basically treat them just like machine guns. Back in '34, that was part of the issue. And then the freaking NRA went in there and argued that no, you can't touch handguns. We use those for sport and all this other shit. But hey, do whatever you want with machine guns. So handguns got dropped, and then short barrel rifles and short barrel shotguns actually got basically thrown in as kind of a catch-all for shorter guns. It's freaking insane. Mike McClune, what's up, brother?
And he has a firearm in that home, he's not breaking, and there's a ban on it, then he's not a law-abiding citizen. He's not.
Was Martin
abiding
Luther
by
King
the law.
wrong to sit there and march against the laws that were against the minorities in the South? He did civil disobedience, and everybody holds him up as a trumpeter of standing up for what was right. And I think Hale DeMar was right to keep a firearm in his home to defend his own family because he needed it, and he used it.
And I will respectfully disagree with him in the fact that it's also right to stand up for regulation that says that, for instance, prohibited purchasers, someone who has a criminal record, shouldn't be able to
I didn't know
have a
Dark
firearm.
right now.
Those are regulations. Those are regulation.
Yeah,
those
and
are common sense.
And we understand that, and we've not said that convicted felons should be able to walk in and buy a gun. We've sat there and said that dope heads shouldn't be allowed to walk in and buy a gun. We wrote a bill that strengthened the Illinois mental health requirements
and we supported that
to
bill.
make sure that people who are adjudicated and committed to mental health institutions were not falling through the cracks. And those types of regulations, I think we can agree on when it comes to those issues. But when you say common sense regulation involves barring an individual from having a firearm in their home for self-defense, be it a handgun, be it a rifle, be it a shotgun, a firearm of their choice, then that's not common sense and that's not regulation. As Justice Roberts said, what's reasonable about a total ban? And the D.C. Solicitor General couldn't answer that question.
Let me
Go ahead, and then I want to move to
Okay.
DC, because we keep referring to DC. We probably
Okay,
should
let me go
explain.
back and say, first of all, I'll say that there was no state ban, saying that there is no state ban for a handgun in your home. And my organization my board of directors has gotten together and said, do we want to look at banning handguns? We're not going to be as an organization that says you shouldn't have a handgun, but we are going to be an organization that says that if you have a handgun in that home, you should know
Yeah,
that there's
because I never
risks.
got
And we might,
any kind
and
of
we are
work,
going to
but
support
DLD
it.
was
If
gonna
the
be liable.
municipality feels that they need to have a ban on firearms in that municipality, then we believe it's their right based upon the health and safety standards in their community and the issues that they have to deal with. But our perspective is more from an issue of prevention. We take the stance that you need these regulations for prevention. Are they going to solve them all? No. Are they going to stop everything? No. It's not necessarily an issue of crime. It's not necessarily an issue of protecting one's self. When you look at firearm violence, you also have to look at
about
the fact
control.
that one of the #1 causes of firearm death and injury is suicide, accidental shootings. Some of these quote-unquote common sense
So this was hell probably over 10 years ago now, but you see how their arguments have always been the same. They might have added on some terminology, but it's still the same BS.
measures that you take offense to are designed with preventative measures enhanced to, one, prevent criminal intent, and two, to prevent accessibility. We feel that when there's increased accessibility, you have increased risk.
For the audience's benefit, let's go back to the DC case, because I don't think we explained that clearly. For more than 3 decades, I believe, Washington,
Yes.
DC has had a handgun ban, and that has come before the Supreme Court. Oral arguments have been heard. We expect sometime in the early summer to hear the results of that. You made reference to some of the questions that were raised.
I'd like
during
to
the
see
oral
this
arguments.
handgun dude's
The
face.
issue at
after
hand was
the
you
first Heller case
have
came through.
Dick Heller, the plaintiff in this case, who is a security guard who wanted to keep a handgun in his home for his own self-protection. He carries one at work to protect private property and public property, and he wanted to have one because he lives in a high crime area for self-defense in his own home. The circuit denied his challenge. A court of appeals upheld and his right to have a firearm, struck down the DC handgun ban as a violation of an individual right under the Second Amendment. And the DC City Council appealed that to the
Yeah, I
United
just
States
opened it
Supreme
up on
Court. The
another
United States
tab,
Supreme Court has taken up the case, and oral arguments were just heard on the 18th of March. And I think it was very telling.
I hear
by
that,
what-
G2.
through the
Take it easy,
question.
brother, man.
A lot of times Supreme Court observers say don't read everything into the oral arguments or the questions that are asked. But when you have Justice Kennedy in the first 10 minutes come out and said he sees an individual right,
Definitely.
absent any connection
Keep
to the
that
militia,
thing
I think it's
on.
very telling as to where the justices are going. And you had Chief Justice Roberts question counsel for DC as to what was reasonable about a total ban on a class of firearms. And he didn't answer the question. And if you read the briefs, and there are close to 90 briefs filed in this case, if you read the briefs, the anti-gun groups went from it's not an individual right, it's only subject to your service with the militia, to today they are now saying we're hoping that local governments can set their own regulations based on their needs and aspirations. And we take the position that this is an individual right. This is a right just like the First Amendment,
Always
or
been
just
an
like the Fourth Amendment or the Fifth Amendment, and that you can't subject a right of the people to just political whims. That it's up for a referendum vote every time you want to go do something else.
Well, with all due respect, this case, the National Rifle Association, Mr. Vandermine and others have looked at this Supreme
that,
Court
James.
case as chomping at the bit with it, because that this is going to be the epiphany of Supreme Court cases. You have to,
because the Supreme Court
He
hasn't really
was
ruled
working
on
for the
any
NRA.
And
man.
I
70
think you
years.
really need-
Well, in 70 years, they haven't taken up the straight up question.
and I think what's important to realize is that this case specifically deals with DC, the DC ban. Mr. Vandermine and others from the National Rifle Association would want you to believe that if however the Supreme Court rules, that this would have an effect on, for instance, the Chicago's ordinances and other ordinances, municipalities that have their own ordinances. This would not. This would deal specifically with DC. And so therefore, the Chicago ban would still be in place, and other other areas in Illinois, other municipalities, their bans would still be in place.
That's not necessarily true.
Well, but the Supreme Court, and we would hope, we haven't had a ruling yet. The case has been heard. We haven't had a ruling yet. The Supreme Court historically has erred on the side that states do have a right, and there is a right to regulate firearms.
Pause.
And again, this goes back, we believe.
There you go.
All right, ask yourself this. If it is a right for any state or federal government to actually restrict an individual rights of the people, then why is it a contradiction of your own state and federal constitution?
They don't care about that. They don't care
No,
about
but
the
that's a
Constitution,
big question.
state or federal.
Yep.
Most of these cases should never make it to the federal court. If these judges were honest, they'd be shot down in state court, because the judges would look at the Constitution, look at the law, and go, "No, you can't do this. It's unconstitutional."
Yeah, they'll still do it anyways. I mean, hell, look at them passing legislation to allow heroin up in Oregon and other places.
Well, I mean, with them letting people use heroin and stuff, is there any law or any part of the Constitution that says they can ban it in the first place?
That's a big question.
There's not. As a matter of fact, the original 1934 NFA and the taxing scheme it went off of was actually based off the opium ban before that. They talked about that in the hearings for the 34 NFA.
You know, it's actually killed more people than firearms in general, Coop.
Doctors.
Fentanyl, and also automobile accidents. How
Every
many
day.
DUIs have you seen with the fucking youth over the decades?
Every day, man. But like I said, it's another reason this is not about saving lives. This is about saving lives. They'd be pushing education instead of bans.
Yep.
And they'd be pushing stricter penalties for people who commit crimes with a gun. They don't do that. Instead, they just try to go through and ban guns, like it's worked so well with drugs and everything else.
We're an organization that wants to reduce death and injury associated with firearm violence, and we believe that those regulations are necessary to prevent death and injury.
So Wilmette and others had the right to regulate. Is that regulation?
No, I think Justice Roberts' question cut to the heart of that. What's reasonable about a total ban on a class of firearms? And I think that that's going to be at the heart of this. I think based on our read of it, I think there are 5 justices there who will vote that it is an individual right. I think you will have 5 justices who will strike down the DC handgun ban as not being reasonable under any test that you could apply to a constitutional right. And from there, if those 2 things occur, the next one is how far and how wide this decision may go. Because if they bring in the incorporation of the 14th Amendment, like they have for every other right under the Bill of Rights, it then applies to the states.
But you'll be a long process before that happens. You'll also have to have, because what they're looking at right now is specifically the DC ban.
They are, but depending on how those justices write that decision, if they bring in the 14th.
But you look, and this is part of the stuff we're going to talk about after this is over. Heller was a long time ago, and then we still had to go through Heller 2, then Bruin. There's been some other cases that have been challenged that the Supreme Court wouldn't even take up. And the Supreme Court still won't take these lower courts and basically, more than just give them a pee-pee slap, but actually force them to follow these rulings.
Amendment, it automatically applies to the states, and I think in short order you will see the handgun bans around the country and other types of erroneous regulations fall. I think that I think the standard that you can reasonably look at is that when a regulation is designed to discourage or impede an individual's ability to exercise their right, that regulation will not stand scrutiny. Justice Scalia went in and talked about 1 gun a month laws, and based on his questioning and that of Kennedy's, I think those will clearly be on the chopping block.
Well, we haven't had a ruling, and it's the job of the justices to look at everything that's there. It's the job of the justices to look at all sides of it. They haven't issued a ruling.
I'd have loved to have seen this
Again,
dude's face
they
when
have
the ruling
taken
did come down.
Things like this into consideration historically in the past, and their final ruling has been that the states can set forth regulations. And again, this case they're looking at, while they may look at other interpretations, which is their job to do so, deal specifically with D.C. But Todd would have you think that this is a litmus test for other pieces of legislation that's coming down, and I respectfully disagree with that.
If they issue a strict scrutiny standard, which is what you have under the First Amendment, as to what laws will pass constitutional muster, it will become a litmus test for other types of gun control. Justice Scalia addressed the well-regulated aspect of the Second Amendment. He said well-regulated means well-trained, not massively regulated. And again, you have to go back to Justice Roberts' comment. What's reasonable about a total ban on a class of firearms? And that's where
we'll wait till June to find that out. Let's move to some state legislation, or we won't get time to go over it. Let's start with House Bill 4357. That's a ban on the sale or purchase of semi-automatic weapons. And if you allow, Chris, for just a moment, Todd, would you please explain what a semi-automatic weapon is?
Sure. This is a modified Ruger 1022 rifle. It's a semi-automatic 22 caliber rifle that my son and I use for hunting coyotes, squirrels, and for target practice. A semi-automatic means that with this unloaded rifle, that when a round is chambered, you will pull the trigger. One round will fire from the rifle. You release the trigger, and it is cycled. It will load another round behind it. You release the trigger, pull the trigger again, and it will expel a second round. One round is fired for every pull the trigger, unlike a machine gun where you pull the trigger and it will continue to fire as long as you hold the trigger back.
So what aspects of this make it illegal under the proposed legislation?
Well, under the proposed legislation, this here at the end is a compensator or muzzle brake. And under the proposed legislation, any rifle that has a compensator or a muzzle brake would be illegal for sale in the state of Illinois. This one very easily comes off just by unscrewing it, and just the mere possession of that piece right there, without the rifle, would earn you a felony in the state of Illinois.
Pause.
The stock that's on this rifle is one.
That right there should shock you. Just the ownership of a piece of metal is just unbelievable, and it's fucking bullshit.
But these people, like this dude over here for handgun violence or whatever, they're completely for stuff like that. You're a criminal if you don't absolutely obey every letter of their law, even if you don't know the law. Even if there's no intent, there's no what they call mens rea, there's no intent. They'd still throw your ass in prison.
I mean, Coop, here's the funny thing about that. If I bought one off from an airsoft site, what's the difference? They probably still charge me for an airsoft part. Yeah,
with some of this legislation they're pushing in a lot of these places. Yeah, all you'd have to do is have an airsoft gun that looks like a assault weapon, and a lot of those parts are interchangeable, grips and things like that. And all you'd have to do is have a vertical grip or something like that, and then you're a felon.
Yep. And it's not just muzzle brakes, it's other features in this video.
Oh, yeah.
One that has a thumb hole back here.
What's up,
it helps in steadying the rifle, and it's this cutout area here. And with that, it has a pistol grip. And under the legislation, any rifle that has a detachable magazine and a thumb hole or pistol grip stock would become illegal. Even without the rifle, under the proposed legislation, just this stock would earn you a felony charge in the state of Illinois. And this is a typical target and hunting rifle that I own, my family owns, and hundreds of thousands of other hunters and shooters across the state have. And that's how broad this legislation truly is.
Chris, is this a good piece of legislation?
It is a good piece of legislation, and let's look at the intent of the.
See, this is what drives me nuts. Look at the intent of the legislation. Don't look at what it actually reads. Don't look at what it actually does. It's the intentions.
Legislation. First of all, what Todd didn't tell you is there's also exemptions in the bill. There's exemptions for certain types of weapons that are used for sporting purposes, for athletic purposes, athletic sporting exemptions, law enforcement exemptions, etc. And Todd would be able to keep this, I believe, under the bill because he'd be grandfathered in. The legislation has specific criteria that defines a semi-automatic gun, a semi-automatic weapon. Most of those features, for instance, a silencer, other criteria, are really designed
That's
for
so insane, Vanessa. But
things
yeah, I
that would
know.
be used for criminal intent. And let's
Pause.
look at the intent of this legislation. This
He said silencer. All right. Since the time of Prohibition, what time period or have we ever encountered it's like some mob member using a fucking silencer or suppressor on his pistol?
Dude, typically the only so-called crimes that they can talk about that are done with suppressors is merely the possession of one that's not registered.
I've never seen any news media or outlet of a fucking mobster using a suppressor.
Because the cases aren't out there. Like I said, usually the only cases they can talk about where there's a crime with a suppressor or silencer is the mere act of having it without having it registered and paying your damn extortion fee.
Mm-hmm.
legislation, the intent of this legislation is to ban semi-automatic weapons or military-style weapons.
Yeah, man against
like an
master, you're right. It could have been
AK-47,
made
one
yesterday.
that was used that killed Zakisha Reed, a young 14-year-old girl in Chicago who was sitting, eating her oranges, studying, 7 houses away. The bullet sprayed and killed her. And that, again, a preventative measure to save lives. And that's the intent of this legislation.
That was a machine gun. That firearm was already outlawed under current state and federal laws. That individual was on the street for over 9 months when he was known to law enforcement to be trafficking firearms. Our question is, why was he on the street? By our count, he broke over 50 federal firearms laws by trafficking firearms across Indiana. He was known to Chicago law enforcement. And why they allowed him to remain on the street still befuddles us to this day. But the legislation, the intent of the legislation is not about banning an AK-47. It's about banning as many firearms as you can attach
It's
a
about
stigma
going
to.
after the lethality. It's going after about high-powered lethality. It's about going after
High-powered
firearms that have a
lethality.
higher power
There's nothing
lethality.
high-powered about
All right.
this 22.
Pause.
There's
But
nothing
when you put
high-powered
the
about
ammunition there,
Now, if you are subscribed or following Freedom Steel, also known as Todd Vandermine, Freedom Steel, you can follow him on YouTube. He even mentions this on lethality. Hollow points. If you are using hollow points, you can definitely get charged under this legislation.
There's a few places like that. I think one might be New York and one might be New Jersey. You can't carry open or hollow point or open point bullets in your personal carry guns, even though that's what the cops carry.
But yeah, there's, like I said, this is just utter bullshit regardless.
I want to
The
ask you
10-round magazine?
The 10-round magazine.
This is a 10-round magazine. It's a 22 long rifle. I mean, it's a squirrel hunting rifle. It's a target rifle. There's there's nothing. You want to talk about lethality? I mean, no matter what bullet kills somebody, dead is dead. It doesn't matter, 22, 223, 22, 250. It's the person behind the gun. It's not the gun. And we've made this argument continuously that you've tried banning handguns in Chicago, you've tried banning semi-autos in Chicago, it doesn't work. And now you want to blame the rest of the people outside the city of Chicago, and even the good ones inside the city of Chicago, for the problems there. The people in Springfield, the people in Bloomington, the people in Peoria, the lawful gun owners of this state who've never committed a crime are going to be punished because you're going to say that they can't buy a 22 for hunting squirrels.
And this is the problem that we have every time there's a piece of legislation. It's Todd standing up and others standing up and saying, don't infringe upon this, this is this. Again, the intent of that legislation was to go after high-powered pieces of ammunition that have higher pieces of lethality. You talked about Chicago's ban.
I want to go
One of the
after
problems with
30-06
Chicago's ban
or
is that
308s.
it's a city that has other states that they're bordering. We don't have uniform federal laws. Yes, well, will law-abiding citizens have some inconveniences? Yes, we all have inconveniences. I have inconveniences when I can't just get in my car and drive.
Yep.
It's an inconvenience when you keep fucking infringing and impeding people's lives when you keep changing the fucking laws to begin with.
Yeah. Him talking about it. Well, yeah, people are going to be inconvenienced. Yeah, prison's a hell of an inconvenience, and that's where you're sending people. So,
without a license. There are reasons we have such regulations to protect the health and safety of our community.
Let's move on to another bill in the few minutes we have remaining. Local legislator Aaron Schock has proposed House Bill 4544. It's a bill that essentially is a concealed carry bill. Let me start with Chris. I believe 48 states have some form of
Hell yeah,
concealed
Red Dawn.
carry,
What's up, brother?
of right to carry. So why not Illinois?
Well, let me jump back a little bit to this, and then I'll get into this. I think it's important that we have these conversations. I think it's important that Todd and I and others sit down and we have a conversation because we have a problem. Unlike other nations, we have incidents, like the Virginia Tech incident, the unfortunate incident that happened at Northern Illinois University, and the common denominator in those situations was that a firearm was used. You don't see those situations in other industrial nations because the access is not as prevalent in those other nations. So we need to have a discussion, and we need to have a discussion besides someone saying that this is it, don't step on this, don't do this, and we need to find out, then what are we going to do? And there's a series of things that need to happen. It's not every piece of legislation is going to solve it all. And I know that, and you know that. But we need to have preventative measures in place to make sure that those situations don't happen.
What's wrong with preventative measures?
Preventative measures to make sure that a person is not a prohibited class. We've supported better background checks. We wrote the original background check law here in the state of Illinois in 1992, which superseded the federal law. We've not been opposed to that, but our rights are not.
And see, this is where I had my arguments with the NRA. They've decided that helping with some of these infringements is somehow going to protect other rights, and that's not the way it works. It's the death of 1,000 fucking cuts.
Yep, and no, that's the thing. We literally got ourselves in a bind because we could not. Basically, we thought we could negotiate with them, and we couldn't.
No, there's no negotiating with. There's never been any negotiating with these people. One of my arguments with the NRA is they have constantly negotiated with them versus just telling them to fuck off.
Subject to the local whims and referendum of other people who disagree with them. There's a reason we had a revolution and we broke away from England. We didn't want to live under a monarchy. We're not Japan. We're not going to live under those totalitarian states. There's a reason it's the United States of America, and we fought wars to keep it that way. And as a veteran who put my 18 years of my life in service to our country, I know what I swore to when I stood to uphold the Constitution of the United States. You were talking about the shotgun right to carry. I think it's a fundamental difference between the groups. We placed a trust in the individual. We trust the individual to make a good, sound decision based on what their circumstances are. We have faith that the people of the state of Illinois will make good, sound decisions. They don't trust people with their own self-defense out on the streets. I think, and it goes back to the
I saw it, Gabber. I sent you one back.
An individual who receives the proper training has the right to self-defense in public places.
I got
you
my
shouldn't
Goonie
have to
beans
retreat because you're going to be the victim of a crime. And we don't think people should be forced to be unarmed to be victims of crime.
And a final 30 seconds from Chris.
Well, and concealed carry, that's part of the problem. In Texas is concealed carry. 66% of those who were concealed carry permit holders were also ended up having some form of, after they got a permit, used it, were charged with some form of crime.
Yeah, like speeding.
You asked about 48 states, and why don't we have it? And in those other 48 states, it's not been in the majority of the people who wanted concealed carry. It's been a vocal minority. And the National Rifle Association, which has used their influence and kind of bullied legislators and went through the legislative process to get it.
And with that, I have to say, it's been most enjoyable and very informative. Thank you so much to Todd Vandermeide of the National Rifle Association and to Chris Boyster, Illinois Council Against Handgun Violence.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on At
Thank
Issue.
you.
We'll join you again next week here on.
Yeah, in places like the Audubon, yeah, they got speed limits in towns and stuff like that. But yeah, speed limits on the Audubon, yeah. Stay out of the left-hand lane if you ain't running. Let me see. Let's do this. Let's flip to current, Todd. What do I do with it? Oh, I have to put it back up. JC9, what's up, my brother? Let me open up. And then we're going to get to kind of the point of the stream tonight. Here it is.
Key challenge to Maryland's semi-auto ban after oral arguments, but before a final decision was rendered by the three-judge panel. If you're as pissed off as I am, let's talk about our options after this.
Let's see. This is Todd. This is we were just watching on the other video. And Todd's got some interesting ideas here that might actually do us some good. And he's one of the reasons me and Warsaw and a few other guys have actually been talking about this right now.
You know, I got home last night and I was so pissed off. I could not see straight. I was just enraged by the games that are being played, especially now on the Fourth Circuit. And I wanted to do a video then, but I was too mad. And I talked to some people, gamed some stuff out, and I think that we
All right, let me see. Let me get back.
have to change up some of our tactics. Cooper and Kirk was handling this lawsuit, if I remember correctly.
No relation.
And I've worked with the people at Cooper and Kirk, Pete Patterson, Dave Thompson, on NRA lawsuits that we had worked with them on the Shepard case. They were involved in the Cook County ammo tax. Chuck Michelle, I've got a good, close personal friendship with Chuck over at Michelle and Associates and all the work he's done for the California State Rifle and Pistol Association. So I know some of the players in some of these cases. I've gotten to know Erin Murphy a bit from Clement and Murphy for her work in the Illinois gun ban case. And we have reputable, honest lawyers. And I think that the problem we are facing is it is becoming harder and harder as a person who believes in the Constitution to sit there and with a straight face and not see that there is corruption running through the federal judicial system along an ideological line.
Yeah, it'd be awful hard to argue and say that Todd's wrong on that. But he's going to get to the meat of the argument here in a minute that we are going to try to make.
And that in their mind, the end the goals justifies any means by necessary to see or obtain the outcome that they want. All this time, we have been acting as gentlemen. We've been acting under the guise of the Constitution. We've been acting under the principles of the four boxes, knowing that, you know, we had salvation and hope within the third box of the judiciary. And what the Fourth Circuit did yesterday was just to rip the scab off and lay bare the absolute judicial corruption.
And remember, the Fourth's not the only one who's pulled that. The fucking Ninth has pulled it.
Our appellate court circuits. And I'm going to start with the Ninth. And if you remember, during Duncan, it was headed back to the three-judge panel, and then the three-judge panel all of a sudden had
let me pause for a sec, Tread.
By the entire night.
So we started out watching a video. This is Todd Vandermeer. So we started out watching a video of him back when the Heller decision had been heard in court, but they were still waiting on the decision itself, kind of debating this gun control idiot about gun control laws and where that case would go and what all it would affect. And watching that video, Todd was completely right. The Supreme Court dropped down 5-4 decision, and the Heller case has been used in many other cases from many other places other than just DC. So kind of what the bent we're on right now is of course we keep seeing these courts that refuse to follow even after the Bruin decision, which basically took Heller 2, McDonald before that, basically took all three of those cases and turned the knob up on them, and really basically said that these states can't get away with doing this stuff because it is unconstitutional. And we still see these lower courts just playing fuck games with it. They reach it into decisions that weren't there. They interpret things in decisions that was completely different, other than the actual interpretations from the judges themselves, when everything is spelled out really easily. So another reason I say that Heller was a bad decision in a lot of ways, because it could have been written much easier and much plainer. Would it have stopped these judges from playing games with it? No, but it would have helped a lot if they would have just said the Second Amendment stands as it is. It can't be infringed. These governments can't do this, period, end of story. Instead, they lay in other language like no right is absolute and other shit like that. And it's just these anti-gun judges are hanging all over. So I'm gonna let Todd kind of lay the rest of the case out.
Ninth Circuit.
Matter of fact, I'm gonna hit the
they said, hey, oh no, we're going to
Rest of
claim
reading.
this case as a comeback case, and we are going to just take it to the en banc, because the habit was you draw a good 3-judge panel in the Ninth Circuit, and then then we would win at the 3-judge panel, and then the en banc would reverse. Duncan was pending at the Supreme Court when New York v. Bruin was decided and remanded. It was GVR saying, try again, see New York. Well, then after New York, we had the Second Circuit, where we had a bunch of wins at the trial court level, and then the Second Circuit Court of Appeals was issuing stays of injunctions without comment. They were dragging their feet on stuff, and they got kind of slapped down by the Supreme Court. They were given a rap on the wrist, and they were told, hey, because the people in the Second Circuit, the plaintiffs went up and said, hey, this isn't right. And Justice Thomas, I think Justice Alito sent them a little note. And now we have the Fourth Circuit. So what do we have? Bianchi was argued 13 months ago at oral arguments. It was GVR. It was one of those cases that were sitting at the Supreme Court.
Yeah, me too, Trey. That's why we ain't gonna go real long.
It went to the 3-judge panel, and it sounded like we had a solid 2-1 decision coming down against them. Now, what I want to know is, why did it take them 13 months to do this? Look at our own case here in the Seventh Circuit. We were in front of the court May, and we had a decision in November. So 5 months. Not light speed, but a fair pace, if anything, for what we had. So here you have 13 months. Everybody is on bated breath, expecting we're going to get a good 3-judge ruling. That would set up a circuit split, make the odds of the Supreme Court taking a case more. We knew that there was a chance it would go en banc and be reversed, and here we go. The internal workings of the Fourth Circuit. It would be nice if we had a judge step up like they did out in the Ninth Circuit and just start laying it out in the open.
Oh man,
so
get some
that's
asses,
where I'm thinking
asshole.
we need to change our tactics. We have been fighting. We've been coloring inside the lines. We have been fighting by the Marquess of Queensberry rules.
Gentlemen, if you please, this is a private fight. The Marquess of Queensberry rules will be observed on all occasions.
The Marquess of Queensberry rules, mind you now, Squire.
Okay with me, McAleen.
Thanks.
Non-belligerents will kindly remain neutral. Now, shake hands.
What's up, brother?
I thank you.
Do you hear that, everybody? The Marquis of Queensberry rules.
No, the Marquess of Queensberry rules.
Marquis of Queensberry rules.
We have been being honorable plaintiffs and honorable participants within the judicial structure that we have.
Yeah, I feel that, Trey. I've been there a lot.
Apply the law faithfully, and the other side is anything but that. They're despicable. They're dishonest. They are, I think Arlie Ermy could probably describe it better.
You are pukes. You are the lowest form of life on earth. You are not even human fucking beings. You are nothing but unorganized, grabastic pieces of amphibian shit.
So,
and see, and he's right about a lot of it. We come into things with constitutional bases for our arguments, come in there with briefs written based on historical precedent, all that stuff. And you have judges that will look at it and they read, I don't know, whatever the hell's Mad Magazine or something like that. It's literally like being in a fight when you got both hands tied behind your back and the other guy's got bricks in his gloves. There's almost no way to win that. Not in the rules that are set, not in that ring. So we're going to get to the shift in a second where we're going to try to put this into another ring.
with that, I think we need to change up our tactics. I think there's a couple of things that we can do. First, let's start at the grassroots level. I believe that every gun rights organization in this country should start.
Yeah, man against the masses. Yep.
Either an email, letter writing. I don't think petitions do all that well, but I think well-written letters from organizations that get sent.
Yeah, that's it, Chamber.
And the text and context of these are that there is a corruption running rampant through the federal appellate court judiciary system when it comes to the Second Amendment and the litigation surrounding it. And we have the 2nd, the 4th, and the 9th, and the 7th to point to. And I think that we need to start asking Mr. Jordan, because the House Judiciary would be one of the oversight committees that would potentially open an impeachment investigation into some of these judges. I think it would be very interesting for Mr. Jordan to open up a hearing about how the Second Amendment is being treated differently in litigation in these various courts. And if you go back and read the opinion from Judge Van Dyke, and I think it would be very interesting to have Justice Van Dyke there under oath in front of the House Judiciary Committee to explain and answer questions about things that he elicited and enumerated in his opinion that came down and a dissent from the en banc panel snatching up the Duncan case. I think it would be very interesting to have a couple of the judges from the Fourth Circuit be asked to come in and explain why it was taking 13
I'll have to edit
months
that description later
to get an opinion that seems so cut and dried from the oral arguments, and to sit there and ask them what's going on behind the scenes. I mean, if the CIA could keep secrets as well as some of the federal judiciary, we wouldn't have a problem in this country as far as our intelligence apparatus goes. But the only leak that you've really seen is out of the Dobbs decision. And so in my, lifetime on this third rock from the sun, it's amazing. But I think that we need to seriously start asking questions, because Congress has an oversight role. Congress has the ability to look into things. And if there were to be an impeachment of a federal judge, that would start in the House of Representatives. So what better than to ask Jim Jordan, give a rat's ass about Hunter Biden right now, but to sit there and start making inquiries of the federal judiciary and ask for a hearing for them to look into the improprieties that are taking place around this litigation. That's number one.
Well, he's talking.
I think that if we all start banging on Jim Jordan, I think if he comes on a podcast somewhere, people start putting the question to him. I watched Guns and Gadgets, Jim Jordan in a very short interview. Good move, great, kind of gets the point across, but I think we need to up the ante. They were talking about expanding the Supreme Court. I think we need to start having investigations about the possible improprieties that could be impeachable offenses by federal appellate judges. They want to up the ante. I say let's up the ante. The other thing that I think should be considered on people on our side, and I think that since Bianchi is a FPC SAF case, I think, and I'm not an attorney, but I think they would have a strong case with at least the gun owning public and the 2A community. That remember when in the New York case, they went up to the Supreme Court and said, hey, what gives? And the Supreme Court sent back down and kind of slapped the Second Circuit around a little bit, so you can't keep doing this. I think that a petition to the Supreme Court by the plaintiffs in Bianchi for them to review before a final judgment is rendered.
I'm going to stop Todd there. Let's go ahead. We're going to show this. So what we're talking about is trying to put enough heat under Jim Jordan to where they will hold some sort of hearings and get these judges on the carpet to actually start questioning them. Hey, what's your reading comprehension level? Because apparently you can't read or you can't comprehend what the hell you're reading. So I started one off just the other day. This was the 3rd. And basically tagging Jim Jordan in a post. And it's something, even just starting small on X, maybe part of where we need to go. Now you can also go to show this one. And I'm starting to try to put together my thoughts to put an email to him. But this is Jim Jordan's website. And he's got his contact email up here. That's the number to his office up here. And I'm with Todd on this one. I think we need to start putting some pressure on Jim Jordan because he's the chairman of the Judiciary Committee. I think we need to start putting some pressure on him. I think we really need to start kind of campaigning that he needs to get these judges up into Congress. He needs to get them up in the House. They need to sit down the judges who wrote these anti-gun opinions and the judges who wrote the dissenting opinions, pointing out why the other opinions were so bad, and get them to, answer questions about this stuff.
Yep. And like Todd said, I think it's time to kick it in high gear, my friend.
We got to do something because these lower court judges don't care. A lot of the times, you might have a decent state court judge, and then of course that's how it makes it to federal. It just keeps getting kicked up the ladder. But these state court judges, we need to kind of do the same thing in the states. So if you've got a state court judge that's making really unconstitutional opinions, maybe it's time to get with your state judiciary committee and start putting pressure on them, because their job is to uphold that Constitution. And when you have something that is a clear right, it's enumerated right there. It's fucking very easy to figure out.
Yep.
So why, when it's challenged, are these judges bending over backwards, turning themselves inside out to uphold these unconstitutional laws? They need an answer. You guys have all heard me say it. As long as there's no negative consequences for these judges, they're going to continue to play the games. It's honestly time for these judges, a lot of them, to get impeached.
And I also like to add to that, like, this is not just, state of Illinois. This is all across the country. I mean, look at what happened out of California with the Ninth Circuit. And also you have, you had Oregon this past year. It actually just ruled their ban is unconstitutional. And now it still has to be finalized still. And we've got Pennsylvania, and now what is the other state? Virginia trying to pass another assault weapons ban.
Yeah. We watched Virginia for a long time last night. They passed their assault weapons ban through the House, and then there's still another round of gun control coming through the House.
I mean, was it Michigan, Tennessee, Kentucky? I mean, these are all states, dude. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're moving stateside. All right, that book's ship has sailed off a decade ago. This is now a different schematic what they're doing now.
Well, look at this. I'll show you something else because I had it pulled up in another tab. Let's share this tab. This is Georgia. So these are bills, and I haven't got a chance to look into these yet to see where exactly they're at. But these are bills in Georgia, in the Georgia legislature this year. Look at this. Brady Law, universal background checks. Brady Law, 3-day waiting period. Crimes and offenses. Failure to adequately secure a firearm, a safe storage law. Pediatrics and health, another safe storage law. They want to require training again for a permit, even though they're constitutional carry. Crimes and offenses, protection against infringements. So that one's possible. I haven't looked at it yet. That was probably a program bill. Crimes and offenses, another safe storage bill. That's about freaking bows and arrows. That's about hunting and subdivisions. Harming a law enforcement animal. Crimes and offenses, drive-by shootings, like those aren't already fucking illegal. Taxing regulation. I'll guarantee if I dig down to that, it's some sort of ammo tax. This protection order.
Actually, so apart from Georgia, what about New Mexico? I heard New Mexico is also trying to pass something as well.
Man, there's all kinds of stuff. We need to do a stream one night. I don't know when I'll put it together. And just anybody who's in chat, we'll just walk through whatever states you guys are in and look at what you've got basically in your state legislatures. And then if we have time after we look through that, then we'll just start picking out states and just flying through to see what's in their legislature.
Like I've been telling people, this is not about states' rights anymore, guys. This is about our country and the fabric of our Constitution. This is what we're dealing with. We're either
What's
united
up,
or
Ballcat?
divided.
Yeah, it's just you gotta. If these people did not know that these judges would possibly uphold this unconstitutional horseshit, they wouldn't be writing these bills.
Yep.
They wouldn't. Alabama has got just a couple bills. Let me see. I'll pull those up real fast. Alabama State. Oops. Just a real quick kind of cursory search. Let me pull back over and I'll share this tab. And if they do any sort of public hearings, I'm going to try to freaking be there. This dude, Chris England, he's always putting together unconstitutional shit. This one right here, I believe this was about the duty to inform. Right now, it's a misdemeanor. He wants to make it a felony. He's the same one last year wanted to make it a felony for me to pick my daughter up at school if I'm wearing my gun. This one is one of their bans going after Glock switches, but I've read the freaking text of the bill, and it would just about ban trigger jobs. Then a do not sell list. We've seen those pop up in other states where people can go in and they can sign on to this list, and then they aren't supposed to be sold firearms, which is absolutely idiotic. I think there was only like 100 out of the entire state of Oregon that signed on to it, or less than that. It may have only been 15. And then this was another one about conversion parts. And it's, again, the bill's written so poorly, it's not even funny. Red flag law.
hate to say it, Coop, but I think they're going to definitely shove
Hold
this.
on. When was this introduced? This was introduced on the 30th. They're pushing through a assault weapons ban, looks like.
Yep.
Hold on. That's not one.
And Coop, you know what the crazy thing is about this? It's just to make the public feel safe. That's all this is. It's all political bullshit.
Oh, that's all it is. Representative Gavin. Let's look through this real fast. Statute. Under existing law, it is a crime to sell, transfer, or otherwise deliver certain firearms to a minor under certain circumstances. The bill would prohibit the sale, transfer of an assault weapon to any person under 18 years of age. So, no, that's not a complete assault weapons ban unless they've got it.
It's just as bad, though. It's just
the bill would prohibit any person under 18 years of age from possessing an assault weapon. Constitution of Alabama. Relating to firearms, prohibit the sale, delivery of assault weapon to any person under 18 years of age, which is absolute horse shit because we've got plenty of people who hunt and stuff at much younger ages and shoot at much younger ages who are using their version of assault weapons. So that was introduced on the 30th. I hadn't checked for a little while.
Even a 1022 Ruger could be an assault weapon under these legislations.
And now they're trying to go for a bump stock prohibition. That was introduced on the 30th. So, yeah, if I can figure out when any hearings are on these, I'll be taking a day off from work and I'm going to go pop my happy ass over to the Georgia or the Alabama legislature. It's and again, they wouldn't try to write this shit if they didn't think courts were going to uphold it. Courts in Alabama so far have been decent on a lot of things, but you never know, man. It just takes a little bit of shift here or there. And then we're, instead of, getting some okay decisions here or there, we're stuck with the seventh, where they can look at everything, they can read the text of the bill, read the text of the law, and then go, oh, no, it's constitutional. Just we don't like these big, scary things.
Also, Coop, I don't know about you, but do you have any local sheriff you actually know?
I don't know him personally.
Do you know any local sheriffs that you would trust?
Not offhand, man.
Okay, no, just because a lot of sheriffs can actually make a major difference against the legislators.
I tried to get with our sheriff over here for Russell County when they were doing the votes for constitutional carry, and called him a couple times. Never got any calls back. He was one of the sheriffs that was against constitutional carry or permitless carry because his department was going to lose money on it. That leaves a real bad taste in my mouth for this dude. So I haven't tried. And there's some people I know that are associated with them I could probably get to him pretty easy if I went through it that way. But I don't know whether I want to have that conversation with this dude.
And probably I know cops. I don't know if local cops can trust or not in your area.
It's a lot of cops down here, at least rural cops and stuff where we're at, seem to be all right. They've never harassed me too much, but what do I trust them not to enforce unconstitutional shit? No, I think they'll do it in a hurry for the most part.
Well, it depends on the cop. That's the thing.
Well, that's a lot of it, because some of these cops, you give them a gun and a badge and you tell them, hey, this is what it is, and they're going to enforce it. None of them will question it and go, no, that's unconstitutional. I'm not doing that. And see, to me, another thing I've said on streams before is if you are going to be there to enforce the law, you ought to know that law and that Constitution better than any fucking lawyer. That way, when something comes up, you know that it's unconstitutional and you should not enforce it. Or you know it's constitutional and enforce it. You are one of the first lines of defense for the people's rights. But they don't think of it that way.
I mean, the way I see it, if it's an unconstitutional law, it's just as an unlawful order in my book. They literally are trying to make us like Canada.
Yeah, and they're going to keep pushing it. And all cats right on a lot of this. Throw that one up there. Right laws according to the policy, yeah. See, none of these things, especially none of the gun laws, have any constitutional grounding whatsoever. The only thing they have is a bunch of bad court precedent that never should have existed.
So,
and if courts were honest about their precedent, let's be honest. The original challenge, and we've talked about it before, the original challenge to the 1934 NFA was over a short-barreled shotgun. And the court said at the time, since these guns aren't useful in military service, they're not covered under the Second Amendment. I think it's horseshit. It's a firearm, it should have been covered. But the point is since it wasn't useful in military service, which means if they stuck to their own damn precedent, anything that is useful in military service should be covered. That means full autos, you name it, should be covered.
Yep.
By their own logic. But that's not the way they will turn themselves inside out. No different than these lawyers. You know, if you use a hollow point in self-defense, they're going to say you used a hollow point because you wanted it to be so deadly and yada, yada, and these things are so evil. But if you used a full metal jacket, they'll tell you, well, you just wanted to use that because that's what the military uses. And da, 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 da. It's anything to get their win is what they're worried about. They're not worried about logic, reason, constitutional rights. It's they don't like this. They want the win, and they will do whatever they have to get that win.
Yep.
And that's what drives me insane. That's why Todd came up with, he's got a good idea. Let's all get together. Let's see if we can get a campaign going. Let's try to put enough pressure on Jim Jordan and maybe where he will get these judges up on damn Capitol Hill testifying in hearings. And when they can't defend that decision and it's absolutely blatantly unconstitutional, they should be fucking impeached. You were supposed to uphold the Constitution. You didn't uphold the Constitution. You're out. See you. But see, I don't think they'll go that far because they're going to protect their own. And I think Jim Jordan and a lot of politicians are going to protect their own. So we'll see. Maybe that's my cynicism coming out. But if we can do that, like I said, you can go to congress.gov. I'll try to edit the stream as soon as I get off, of the description on the stream as soon as I get off, and put Jim Jordan's email down there, along with the links for Todd Vandermine.
Freedom Steel.
Yeah, Freedom Steel. Matter of fact, I put his main channel in the description, then I put the video that we watched most of tonight in the description. So if you wanted to go check both of those out, you know, rock and roll, give Todd a sub and tell him, hey, what's up? But you know, maybe we can get that going. Maybe that's the only other step we've got right now, because we can't depend on these judges. They've already proven that. And we'll listen to more oral arguments as they come. I thought there were supposed to be some oral arguments either today or yesterday on some stuff. Where can I follow you? You talking about me? You can follow me at C&T Designs on YouTube. You can follow me on Rumble at, I think it's C_T. Fuck, I don't know. I can't remember. Let me see. I have to look at it this way. I think you can just find me by looking up C&T in all caps. And if we're talking about YouTube, of course, you can follow me on this channel. And on X, I think if you just look up C&T Designs and Arms, you can find me on X.
But no, Coop, actually, social
C&T
media
Designs 2022.
Yep, social media like X. I mean, actually, let's just flood the fucking social media, the phone call lines, email, anything, just to get his attention.
Yeah, I mean, we need to. If you're on X, especially if you've got, you know, a bigger following, start tagging Jim in posts. Hell, I do it to damn Tommy Tuberville and guys all the time. Doesn't mean they're going to pay attention to it.
I mean, the leftists do it, so why can't we?
Well, we do. I mean, we need to start using some of their tactics when it comes down to it. You know, and we're so busy playing offense in a lot of these cases, we can't, or defense in a lot of cases, we can't go play the offense that we should be playing. Because the left, you know, hell, they got politicians. They just keep writing up bills. And if, I mean, man, Virginia's got so much stuff going on, it ain't even funny. Apparently, they're still trying to tax stuff on in Alabama. Georgia's got a bunch of shit going on. South Carolina hopefully will be signing in their constitutional carry sometime shortly, but they still got some gun control bills coming up.
I mean, it's sad to think about this as America. When I picture America, I picture my home, my actual home, and when you think of the Star Spangled Banner, this is just an absolute figure to our flag and everything, dude.
There's a thought and a line of thinking. Okay, am I a subject or am I an individual with rights and liberties? Because if I'm an individual with rights and liberties, you can't take those away. If I'm a subject, then what I think of as rights and liberties are just privileges, and these governments can take them away whenever they want. And they think of us as subjects, which does a little bit more than just piss me off of them, because the vast majority of people in this country aren't violent people. We're not out hurting people. We're not out, trying to commit crimes and things like that. We just want to live our lives, man. We want to be able to go to work, raise our families, have the tools to defend ourselves, have the tools to hunt if we want to hunt, all that stuff. But that's not the way these people think. They're too nothing negative ever happens to them unless they do something so bad that they piss off their own people and their own people turn on them. And then you've got morons out there, straight NPC drones, who just continue to vote for these people. What's the excuse for Hank Johnson staying in office, or Nancy Pelosi, or Dianne Feinstein,
or Nadler,
Chuck Schumer, Nadler? I mean, I got people in the Alabama legislature. There's no excuse for these people to be in office besides the fact that they just lie to the people that they are supposed to represent the whole time.
No, but there's like the whole thing, argument, money versus honor. This is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with money, which is a bribery over honor.
Yeah, we are absolutely ruled by lesser men, period. And if we weren't, we wouldn't have the issues that we have now. You wouldn't have politicians getting up there saying, well, they can solve all these issues in social society and all this, because they can't. Government causes the issues. I use the example, government is a cancer, gives you cancer, and then sells you more cancer to cure the cancer. It's like a hamster on a wheel. And it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. So, maybe we can play some games with it. As long as we've got enough people with actual, spines on the House Judiciary, maybe we can get those judges in there. Maybe all it would take was a couple hearings where they get up there and get called on the carpet.
Yep. What's even disturbing right now, Coop? If you look at the actual recruiting numbers in our military, dude, it's beyond worse than Vietnam's era, and there's a possible rumor right now. I'm hearing it. The likelihood of a draft might be coming.
This era that we're in right now is the first era we've ever been in where I would not recommend for someone to go in the military.
Yep.
6 years ago, I'd have been like, yeah, man, there's a lot of shit going on, but and now it's like, nah, I wouldn't recommend it.
The chain of command and everything, it's all fucked up, dude, especially in every branch you could think of.
Well, your upper leaders, a lot of your generals and stuff have been political animals forever, but it's gotten so much worse. That's the reason they were all hung up on Tom or Tuberville, hanging up all these big promotions. They were all political officers. I looked at a bunch of them. They're all political officers. These weren't your mainline door kickers and people who were working to do a job. They were all political officers. And they're the ones pushing all the equity and diversity shit in our military and trans shit in our military now. And it's going to destroy it. This country right now is probably the weakest I've ever seen it, and probably the most fractured I've ever seen it in 47 years. So, but anyway, we are going to end it though. I'm going to try to get me a little sleep tonight. If I got to go in there and knock myself out or eat a bunch of damn gummies or something. Good God, man. I need to get some sleep one of these days. But anyway, Warsaw, you tell everybody where they can find you. If you've got, the socials up, where they can follow you, whether it's, Twitter or anything else.
You can just find me here with Coop and other people like John Crump. And every once in a while, you see me pop up.
Yeah, every once in a while he'll throw his own stuff, but yeah, you can follow. Warsaw's a good dude, man. He's one of the ones who's really starting to try to push to get a bunch of us together to try to get the word out to even more people. Because Crump's got a big following. Try to get Dark and his following in on it. Some of the guys will be into it. Some won't. I'm stretching it for me being into this end of it because I don't trust these sons of bitches, but I'll give it a whirl. I'll see if we can put some pressure on them. But I have no faith. I have no faith in these courts to actually uphold our rights anymore. I just don't. So there's got to be some way there's got to be some way there's some negative end that, hey, if you do good, here's you a pat on the head, but if you do bad, here's you a fucking frying pan to the face or something like that. Metaphorically speaking, kids. But yeah, let's go ahead, man. We'll get out of here, guys. All you guys, man, are cool as shit. Love all you guys to death. All Cap, thanks for showing up, brother. JC9, my brother. Chambered, everybody else is in the chat. Tread, Ozzy showing up. Gabber, Man Against the Masses. Vanessa Kitty, my sister, was in here. And I still have to put together the Man Against the Masses freaking meme stream. That's coming shortly. Sam and Anarchy was in here. Sam's a good dude to follow. He plays a lot of games and stuff. He's a good dude. And of course, G23 is in here. He got out of here a little while ago. He had to get some sleep because he's got to be up early. So, but anyway, we'll end it like we always do. You perps be cool. Keep that thing on you at all times. And we're out. Y'all have a good night, guys.